on diversity, the first thing I thought was, why are we doing this? This is absolutely normal. And they said, no, where's your data? Show it to us. Show us that diverse teams are really better than other teams. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? It's the right thing to do as a human being. And then I fell on my face and quickly realized that nobody was going to listen to me if I didn't have the data. Sadly enough, people are not willing to do what is right, but they're willing to do what is right when it's, costing their pockets. So we're going to show them, you're going to lose euros and dollars if you're not going to do it, and that's when it worked. And that's why leadership is important when you're learning on diversity, inclusion, and equity. The top in the company needs to be able to carry it. So, and sometimes when the top does it and there's a change in leadership, it can all go backwards again. So it's very dangerous. That's why I'm like, yeah, you're definitely right. Leadership is very important. And how are we going to learn as well? By sharing. For example, I was named a European Union, it's a long title, a European Union Diversity Ambassador in Transport. Why? Because I was working on diversity in aviation. So at one point we said, we're not going to reinvent the wheel here constantly and do new programs and come up with new ideas, and they don't work. So let's go and see what other sectors are doing and make it a full program for the transport sector, aviation, maritime sector. Let's put it all together and share our best practices. We are measuring those practices, those best practices. I believe Brigitte said it as well, you need to measure it, and then you can replicate it, and you can also go deeper into the details in the sense of why did this work and why did the other program not work. So it's really about sharing best practices, having leadership, measuring the data, replicating, and continuing. So diversity, inclusion, and equity also has to be viewed from an intersectional perspective. That is very important, I believe. And with AION Consulting, for example, my own company, we're 100% fully diverse. Every person has a different ethnicity, is from somewhere else in the world, and it works perfectly. There's no issues for everybody. It's very normal, but that's not always the case. If the leader is not open-minded. Even in our company, we're 70% women. Many times they're as our clients are in mining and aviation, they're very surprised to see a 70% women team, but it is perfectly possible. It is perfectly possible, and one important thing I think as well that we have to add in the whole learning experience is to add accessibility. Accessibility needs to be part of diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I let you talk.
You're perfectly right. It's about doing the right thing. And to a certain extent, the theme of DEI is questioning the social model that we want to foster for the future. That's my first reaction. My second reaction is actually we can look at the theme from two different angles. The first one is a very operational one. It's of course extremely important that we have programs for each specific focus group. But we have to be prudent, and we have to make sure that we do not leave anybody behind.
Level, I don't think it's even enough, especially when you see that, for example, 40% women should be in a board, or I don't think it's a fair deal. If we're going to an equal world or equity world, I don't think it's a fair deal. It should be 50-50, it's that easy. When I see programs, 20% of women no, it should be 50%, and maybe we should have, in the beginning, victims of positive discrimination. It's a bubbly road. Back in the days when blacks in America had positive discriminations in quota, it was the same thing. It's going to be a bubbly road. We're just going to have to accept that it's going to be that way. It's a transitionary phase. So, for example, with AION Consultancy, we do tenders with the UN. So for some tenders, you have to have signed the women empowerment principles, and you have to show that you have at least 60% of women in your company. If you don't have that, you can't participate in the tender. If you're not part of the UN Global Compact, you cannot participate in the tender. And I think it's great because it creates opportunity. And just like Shalina said, if they hadn't asked her, where are those women at, she might not have done it. So we need that push, and we need to accept it's going to be a bubbly road. And then it will pave the way for the future. Otherwise, that gap is going to stay. For example, in the aviation sector, the way it looks now, it's a 400-year gender gap. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I'm not going to wait on that. I'm not. So we all need to just accept it. Accept those policies, the policies, write them correctly, 50%. If somebody is telling you, I'm giving you help, and they're giving you $30, you're not going to accept it. You feel cheated. So let's not cheat anyone out and have correct policies. Correct. The U.S. is doing better. The workforce reflects society better, but it's also not great. So they also need to do better, and there's a strong movement in the US at the moment that is actually creating anti-diversity policies. Some states, I grew up in Texas, I did my high school in Texas, and the state of Texas has decided that there's an anti-diversity policy in place, so that companies are not allowed to do that. So we're kind of seeing also in the world, at the same time, we're trying to get ahead, and we're going backwards. And Europe still has a very long way to go, and that has to do, of course, with colonization, not having no decolonization or no decolonization classes in school. So there's a lot of problems actually around it. And you're right, I'm gonna give you an example of my stepmother, who's a Black American, and she worked still under sharecropping. She's now today 70 years old, and sharecropping was the system after slavery. It was just a new form of slavery, and she's only 70 years old. Can you imagine? We all think that slavery is a long time ago. So she was one of the first ones that had positive discrimination and went to work for General Motors. Now what happened? She was an educated Black American, and what was happening? The white managers at that time said, okay, we need to hire Black women, and they were actually seeking the ones that were the least educated because they wanted the system to fail. So the ones, the Black female American women with degrees were not getting jobs. A lot of Black Americans didn't get the right jobs, only the ones actually who didn't merit it. And then they said, look, we can't do anything about it. Quotas don't work. But they had to fight for it. And then, like I said, here, it's going to be a bubbly road as well. And here we focus on gender. And myself, as a colored woman here in Belgium, I fully agree when they say gender. I don't feel included because I know that when they say this percentage of women need to be now in the board of directors, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. That's why I created my own company, because I was not going to get that seat at the table. So, and I wasn't going to bring my seat to the table. So I built my own table. So, but I fully agree with him. It is very problematic, and I'm sorry, there is still a long way to go, but we have people sitting here who are really trying to make that change. And then, like the rule said, it's voting time, so vote right. Vote right.
Corporate Social Responsibility Directive. Is that enough? Is that going in the right direction? Thank you.
It's a start. It's a start. It's a start. I think it's great that companies now have to report on that. There's a lot of standards for the CCRD that cover everything related to the people aspect. So it's definitely a start for a lot of companies, because when they're actually going to see the data, they can be like, oh, we're actually doing this bad? I didn't know, so they can do something about it. And also with the CCRD, in those ECRSs, they're going to have to explain why is the number so low, or when they don't want to report on that matter, for example, they're going to have to say why they're not reporting on that matter. So all those issues are going to come up within these organizations. And I think we need to even go further also, not only having large companies report on that, but also start with voluntary reporting for smaller companies, because at the end, small businesses carry the economy. 70% of most countries are actually small businesses. So there's also a big issue somewhere else, because they engage 50% of the workforce. Here you see quite a lot of people from large companies, but we still have that 70% of small businesses who are just hiring maybe exactly what they are and nothing else. So there's a big issue there as well. So, okay, we're tackling step one, large companies, but we need to go further than that. And I think it's a great step. We need to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions.
question?